Hello, hello, hello. We have finally reached part 3, last part of this week's comic book reviews. Starting off this last part with a book that really needs no introduction or explanation. Godzilla in Hell, issue number 4. Um, just dropped it. So yeah, this book is basically just a huge monster fight. Um, we start off with Godzilla over Destroya. I think that's Destroya, right? And King Ghidorah's bodies in Tokyo. What a great, just like opening image, and then the big screonk. I just like that sound effect. I like the screonk sound effect because written down, I don't know, like something about it. But then they decide to wake up and have a three-way battle: Godzilla versus pretty sure that's Destroya and King Ghidorah. And that's the whole fight. Just a kaiju battle in Tokyo, and it's just really fun. Again, this is not a complicated book. You should know whether or not you like it from the title. But I for one really did like it. It's just a fun battle. It's a fun book with monsters fighting it out. That's all you could really want from Godzilla, I guess. So yeah, again, either you like Godzilla fighting other kaiju or not. But what did bother me, there's something that bothered me. And it's not about this book. It's about the ad on the back cover of this book. So it's an ad for Back to the Future. They're doing a comic book adaptation. And on the top, they call Back to the Future one of the most popular and culturally significant movies of the past 30 years, a cult classic. Back to the Future is not a cult classic by any means. That's like calling Star Wars a cult classic. It's just not. It's wrong. It's popular. People know about it. People like it. So yeah, Back to the Future, not a cult classic. Godzilla in Hell, very enjoyable book. Moving on to Will Eisner's The Spirit, issue number 4? Issue number, where does it say the issue number? Yeah, 4. It's on the bottom here. Issue number 4. Last issue we found out that the Spirit was alive. He made his way back to the city. I forget what the city is called, and that's really bad. And while Dolan knows that, because he kind of broke into Dolan's apartment or house or whatever, Strunk and White have not been informed, and so they go to interrogate Miss Pigel, Lady Pigel, whatever her Pigel something, and see if maybe she knows the last known whereabouts of the Spirit and how he disappeared. And we're treated to one kind of last story of the Spirit intervening in a weapons and munitions trade that Pigel is orchestrating when he gets captured by Pigel and has to fight his way out of Denmark, where this is happening. Suddenly, he's all the way in Denmark, trying to prevent this munitions trade from going on. Whether or not that's the real story of what happened, well, we'll leave it to the rest of the comic to find out. But it's really just cool looking stuff. I'm still really enjoying just how kind of comic booky the art is on the inside, just like the bright reds and everything, the really kind of goofy facial expressions all the characters have. I'm really enjoying this book. It's just really fun. And that's all I could, really ask for, I guess, out of a book. It's a fun book, it's a fun story with fun characters, with fun names. So if you like fun, then The Spirit, and if you like pulp, it's still like a very pulpy book. If you like pulpy fun, then The Spirit is the way to go. And I like just while I'm showing you the covers, I like all the covers, but what bothers me is that they are not indicative of the story at all. Like, you think this might be like a dark noir sort of story from the cover, and it's a silly story where the Spirit kicks a bundle of dynamite. So, totally, just the cover is selling a completely different tone from the book. That kind of throws me off. Because if I didn't know anything about it and I saw this, I'd be like, oh yeah, this is a dark noir moody book. And if I wasn't so inclined towards pulpy fun, then I might be disappointed. So yeah, that's that. And the last book I'm reviewing this week is Gail Simone's The Clean Room, or just Clean Room, rather, issue number 1, a new Vertigo title by Gail Simone. This story is, it's not quite clear yet. Issue number 1s are like that sometimes. But we open in a small village in, I think, Germany. Is it said in the book later on where this village is? No, it doesn't say, but I'm guessing from the street sign here, which has a, this letter, Schwasse something, I think, that it is, in fact, Germany. And in this small little German village, a small girl gets struck by a car driven by just a jerk, driven by an asshole, who runs over this little girl, and she wakes up in the hospital and asks why her dad's head is made of snakes. And that is how we open. It's a cold open. Kind of, it's upsetting. It's, they set up like a quick little story. Girl coming home from church, hit by a car, wakes up, Papa's face is made of snakes. Then we cut to Florida, where our main character, or at least I think our main character, named Chloe, is attempting suicide. She too, like the little girl in the beginning of the story, after being assumed to have died, wakes up in the hospital, and instead of seeing her father's face being made of snakes, sees her boyfriend's head, which is, as you can see, blown half off. Continuing the story, Chloe becomes obsessed with this author named Astrid Mueller, who wrote a book that, legend has it, makes people go crazy, and then decided to switch gears and write self-help books. Chloe's fiance, Philip, who we saw in this panel, started reading these self-help books, and then a few months after, he also became obsessed with Astrid and blew his own head out, which makes me as a reader think that maybe she's having Twilight Zone-esque visions that prophesize the future of how people die. Maybe Astrid's father got covered in snakes or something. I don't know. But that panel sure looks like the boyfriend decided to blow his own face off. Astrid becomes obsessed with finding out the secret behind kind of Astrid Mueller's whole deal, and goes all the way to her headquarters in Chicago, where she interviews and gets into a bit of a spat with Astrid's assistant. And then really creepy things begin to happen. As she's sitting down with the assistant, Chloe sees this weird kind of demon creature appear behind her and freaks out. And the book ends with the introduction of Astrid Mueller herself, who seems to be the little girl from the beginning of the book, all grown up, because in her office is the same teddy bear. So yeah, it's an interesting kind of lead up to a story. It reminds me a lot of the John Carpenter movie In the Mountains of Madness, which also involved an author who wrote books that make people go crazy. So we'll see how similar it gets to that. But overall, not the best first issue, in my opinion. They're definitely setting up a mystery, or Gail Simone's definitely setting up a mystery. The art's pretty fantastic, but overall it's a bit kind of sidewindy. It's a bit confusing, especially considering the boyfriend thing, because the narrator, Chloe, talks about her boyfriend blowing her face out, and it's unclear whether that's before or after her own suicide attempt, which is why right now I'm thinking she's having prophetic visions of the future, of how people die, but it's a little unclear exactly what the time span is for that. But I'm liking the premise of the kind of the author. I just like that idea of the author who writes books that make people go crazy. I liked it in From the Mountains of Madness. I I probably said The Mountains of Madness before, which is an H.P. Lovecraft story. The movie, John Carpenter's movie, is From the Mouths or In the Mouth of Madness, which is kind of a weird. It's H.P. Lovecrafty. It's about things making other people go insane and seeing things that may or may not be real. And I just like that kind of subgenre of horror fiction. It's kind of psychological, kind of eldritch, and I enjoy that sort of thing. So I want to see where this story goes. And again, I trust Gail Simone as a writer. I like a lot of her previous work, so I'll be keeping on this book for at least a couple more issues. And that is it for this week's comic book reviews. I hope you enjoyed. If you're interested in the DC or Marvel books, those are in part 1 and part 2 of this week's videos, respectively. So if you're interested, please check those out. But before we move on to those, if you decide to move on to those, I want to thank you for watching this one. Please like, subscribe this video, whatever, if you like it, standard YouTube-y stuff. I do read everything posted in the comments, so if you have anything that you want to say in there, feel free. I will get to it. And, yeah, thank you for watching this video, and I hope that you will join me for some more comic book reviews in the future.